Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of your favorite YouTube podcast, Garbage Time Takes. As it seems to have been the case many times over the past couple months, it's just me and Bob tonight. Bob, how are you doing? Screen is off, long day, tired. Are we falling asleep at the wheel?
Well, Derek, yes, no denial there. However, I would just like to once again apologize to our loyal and loving fans for, you know, our co-host Dennis, who's now actually been rescinded to title of guest on the podcast because he never shows up. We have viewers that come to the pod more than him. Just disgusting. And please hit him up in any way you know how to contact him and say that this is disgusting.
Yeah, Bob, you said it perfectly. Becoming a guest on his own show, Bob, is sort of where Dennis is at as it pertains to his, haphazard occurrences. But me and you, Bob, we're here to hold down the fort. Um,
Always loyal, Derek.
I mean, gotta give the people what they need and what they want, Bob. Uh, I guess the first thing we can start out with Thursday night football, Bob. Are the Cincinnati Bengals dead after losing to the Baltimore Ravens 34-20?
Well, certainly felt like a must-win game for them in terms of the divisional sense. I mean, um, they have not performed particularly well within the North so far this year, and so, dropping into the division game is not going to help them in any favors in that department. However, if Joe Shiesty's injury turns into anything serious, um, we could be talking about disaster striking. Dennis, if he were here, probably would say something along the lines of, "This is why you don't pay the man." The Brinks struck because when something like this happens, what do we do? Well, that's exactly right. Now they have their backup in who's some no name bum,
Correct.
and there's trouble brewing there. There's trouble brewing, underperforming at every turn.
I mean, it was always going to be tough to go into Baltimore, Maryland on a Thursday night with no T. Higgins and beat the Baltimore Ravens, especially after the Ravens collapse last week against the Cleveland Browns. Uh, Bob, Washington Huskies legend Jake Browning. I'm going to be honest, I didn't even know this guy was still in the league. I remember Jake Browning when he was drafted to the Tennessee Titans, what feels like a decade ago at this point. And again, had no idea he was still in the NFL. But the Bengals are assuredly toast without Joe Burrow at the helm. I would like to send a special shout out to Joe Mixon for providing me with a quality fantasy football performance. Thank you, Joe. Your contributions are very much appreciated. And same to Justin Tucker. Ravens struggled to punch the ball into the end zone in the fourth quarter. He nabbed a couple field goals for me. So thank you for that as well. But Bob, the Bengals really couldn't afford to lose last week to the Houston Texans, a game that, me, you, and Dennis were all on a call for. Dennis going through multiple, roller coaster stages of we're back, we're cooked, we're back, we're cooked. And ultimately, a Tyler Boyd touchdown was dropped, a field goal was kicked, and CJ Stroud, too much time left, came down the other end. And to lose again tonight on Thursday night, it seems like the regression you've been calling for, Bob, is finally among us.
No, Derek, I guess I guess I was just a little early on the call. I
Just a
was
year
just so
earlier.
far out in front of this, so far out in front of this that you know, it's really just no surprise that eventually it came true. However, it's worth noting that Dennis, the dark ages of Cincinnati football may be returning sooner rather than
Oh
later
no!
if the ship cannot be righted shortly because the salary cap is now toast. A problem that they did not have during the Andy Dalton era, I can assure you.
Correct, correct. Bob, and really what it comes down to, unfortunately for Cincinnati, is they let Jesse Bates walk Their defense, I can't remember who else walked this offseason,
Their
but
defense and secondary is all Michigan men who stink.
okay, wrong, first of all. Uh, but a lot of the veteran leadership they had in the secondary is no longer there, and the Michigan men in their secondary they do have are quite young. And the fact of the matter is, the defense at this point, not having Hubbard for tonight's game. I can't remember if Trey Hendrickson played or not, but it really doesn't matter because they lost. Fact of the matter is, the defense that showed up for the Bengals over the last couple of years that could keep them in the game, win them some games, when the offense was struggling, that defense doesn't exist anymore. And so, unfortunately for Dennis, unfortunately for the Cincinnati Bengals, their season may be toast, Bob. It may be toast. And they even got some great news with Deshaun Watson being done for the year. The Browns were ahead of them. The Steelers and the Browns played this week, and so they had a chance to gain some ground if they could have won uh, this past Sunday and tonight. But unfortunately, Bob, uh, are they officially cooked, Bob? Is it official?
It's ventilator life support right now, Derek. Ventilator life support. Um, Here's the thing, Derek. I think this is just where the criminal offense comes in. Outdone by Mike Tomlin and the Steelers. Outdone. I mean, how with Mitch Trubisky? Mitch Trubisky
And Kenny
is
Pickett.
outdoing you. And Kenny Pickett, correct. Correct. But I just have to bring up Mitch Trubisky because it's Mitch Trubisky, Derek.
Bob, the
However,
don't let's not disrespect MVP Nickelodeon valuable player Mitch Trubisky. Mitch Trubisky, who looked like Tom Brady every time he played the Lions. Mitch Trubisky, Bob.
yes, and Kenny Pickett. Yes, and of course Kenny Pickett.
Small hands.
Disaster. Disaster, Derek. I mean, can somebody stop Mike Tomlin? Please, God, somebody.
Bob,
I don't know how it's being done. I it
Bob,
feels like
here's a
divine
question for you.
intervention at this point.
Here's a question for you, Bob. Would the Cincinnati Bengals be 5-5 and out of the playoff picture if Mike Tomlin was at the helm?
I have to say no at this point, Derek. I have to say no because I have no other data to support that the answer would be, you know, to anything to the alternative. I mean, I don't know what to say. I don't know what to say, Derek. The men lie, women lie, and the numbers don't lie. And Mike
Correct.
Tomlin somehow better to be lucky than good, but whatever it is, it's over 500 there.
Yeah, Bob, and unfortunately, I'd love to ask our good friend Dennis J. Weaver, but he's not here to answer the question for himself. And at this point, will we ever get an answer from Dennis Weaver regarding whether or not Zach Taylor is an issue and whether Mike Tomlin would have this team not 5-5 and out of the playoff picture? But I mean, Bob, the data points would suggest Mike Tomlin would probably not be coaching a 5-5 team at this point, and that must be a bitter pill to swallow for our good friend Dennis.
Yes. However, a pill that he will swallow off camera, as we're not sure he'll ever make it out again.
Yeah, tough, tough scenes as always, Bob. Next topic. We're gonna keep it moving today, folks, because who knows when Bobby Epler may just
Drop
absolutely
dead of exhaustion.
may go comatose on us, and we can't have that happening. Can't have that happening, Bob. The Detroit Football Lions are 7-2. And unfortunately, yet again, Dennis J. Weaver is not here to incur our wrath after he made some jokes at our expense regarding our preseason predictions, Bob. And when I look at the standings and I see the Cincinnati Bengals at 5-5 and I see the Detroit Lions at 7-2, I can't help but wonder that perhaps some jealousy may have crept into Dennis's mind as we started the season. I mean, coming out and beating the Chiefs week one and pretty much, dominating at every turn ever since must not feel good for that man.
Well, once again, I was way out in front of this with a extremely bold, like, four loss prediction for the Detroit Lions. Um, however, uh, Dennis, once again, never any faith
Correct.
in his own teams or in anything else. I don't know quite what Dennis has faith in besides his Thursday nights being filled. However, the Detroit Football Lions are just there's just no quit, Derek. There's just no
Correct.
quit in the Detroit Football Lions. There's no more SOL, and that's just the beautiful. That's the most beautiful fact of it all. It's just every game is entertaining. It's worth watching. It's it's meaningful.
Correct.
There's a storyline,
All facts.
and you know what? That's all that any Detroit Lions fan can even ask for. We're not a greedy bunch. We don't need a Super Bowl appearance every year. But
Correct.
darn it, a division title once every 20 years would sure be appreciated. I'll tell you that much. And en route. Now, I will say this:
The Minnesota
we,
Vikings aren't making it easy on us, Bob.
shocking to absolutely nobody, they just can't let us have it, Derek.
Nope.
They couldn't just let Kirk Cousins walk out the door and then call it a season.
Nope.
Had to go bring in Josh Dobbs, who now looks like the second coming of Geno Smith, and schmuck us. I mean, what is going on? I can't wait till we play the Vikings because I can't wait to put them in the ground ourselves. Because you know what? If nobody else can do it right, we got to do it ourselves. And
Correct.
but they have no business being anywhere close to this.
No, they do not.
And the fact that I'm even considering a fact that we may be in trouble is gross.
Well, Bob, here's the thing. Here's the thing. The Lions control their own destiny, which is more than what most teams in the NFL can say. So they control their own destiny, have a soft schedule starting this week with the Chicago Bears, a game that does strike a bit of fear into my heart considering the Lions' ineptitude against mobile quarterbacks. And speaking of Bob, while the Lions did win the game and while the offense has performed at a Super Bowl level basically all year except for the Ravens game, dropping a 41 bomb on the Chargers, Bob, the Chargers scored on 5 straight touchdown drives in the second half. Every single drive went for a touchdown. And if it wasn't for Motor City Dan Campbell, letting it all hang out and going for it on fourth down when a chip shot field goal would have sufficed, we may be looking, at a 6-3 record instead of a 7-2 record. And 33% of the games this year, Bob, Aaron Glenn's defense has given up 30 points to Seattle, 38 points to Baltimore, and now 38 points to the Chargers. And, what all those teams have in common is above average to elite quarterback play, Bob. And can you tell me what type of quarterbacks you see in the playoffs?
Consistent high level quarterback.
Correct. Above average to elite quarterbacks are what you get in the playoffs. And so the Lions have done a really good job against the likes of, Baker Mayfield and Jordan Love, Desmond Ritter. There's someone else in there that I'm forgetting, and the Kansas City Chiefs wide receivers. Because let's be real, Patrick Mahomes played very much a winnable game that game. But the fact of the matter is, Bob, the Lions defense has not been good enough. They do not have what appears to be a championship level defense this year. Granted, some of the big free agent signings, Bob, CJ Gardner Johnson, Emmanuel Mosley, out for the year, did not help us whatsoever. Those were supposed to be pieces to improve a defense that badly needed it. But, Bob, at this point in the year, we're in week 10. We've known what we've had for the rest of the year since week 1, basically. And for the defense to still be giving up 38 points and not having even a sniff of an answer to slow down the Chargers offense for basically the entire game is worrisome, again, 33% of the games this year, opposing offenses have gone over 30. And it's not going to get done, Bob. It's not going to get it done. The Lions consistently are unable to generate a pass rush with four guys, and when they do bring a blitz, they get picked apart. So Aaron Glenn's got his work cut out for him. You know me, Bob. I've not been an Aaron Glenn fan uh, since last year. I was hoping he would have taken a job elsewhere. Uh, I'm sure you remember fondly on my punt trackers throughout games last
Yes,
year.
yes, yes.
And do you remember how many times the Chargers punted this past Sunday?
One.
That would be correct. It was one time. And so, again, I don't know what to make of it, Bob. We have a championship offense, but a defense that really is only good against bad teams. And we're going to see how good they really are because Justin Fields has given this team problems in the past. Uh, they're not very talented offensively. They're somewhat talented defensively. And Jared Goff's, we might have to rely on the arm of Jared Goff again, Bob, who, to his credit, had an answer for every scoring drive the Chargers had, so credit to him. Bob, are you there?
Derek, what did Derek? I completely missed your question. I'm sorry. I don't know if it cut out for a second,
It,
but what did you say?
it 100% cut out. I could see it on the audio levels. It just kept spiking. What I said was, uh, what was the last thing you heard, actually?
Just ask the question. Repeat the question entirely, Derek.
Well, I don't know how much context you heard.
On what topic, Derek?
We were talking about how Aaron Glenn needs to have a better defense this
Oh,
week
right,
against the
right,
Bears.
Derek, right,
And
right. I apologize. I literally have no idea what's happening. I did not fall asleep. I can assure you
it's no
that.
problem. Basically, what I said was Aaron Glenn needs to have a defensive scheme, and what has happened against the Chargers and the Ravens and the Seahawks has not been good enough. I had problems with them last year. I remember you responding to my quip about the punt tracker, and
Right,
basically I said we're going to find out how good the defense is against the Bears offense that has given us problems in the past. And
right.
I asked if this was going to be a game where we needed to rely on Jared Goff's arm again to get us through it, or was the
Well,
defense finally going to step up?
well, I think it is going to be another one of those games, Derek. Aaron Glenn, unfortunately, a tale as old as time. Um, has about two or three game stretches where he looks like he might have a semblance of a defense, and then immediately resorts into the Seattles, the Philadelphias, the LA Chargers of the world, where he gives up performances which are consistent of absolutely zero adjustments and absolutely zero punting occurring, and a whole lot of tubs. And only the only time I can actually think of a game where that was the case and we won was the Chargers, which was just this recently, which is why it was such a big deal.
Correct.
Um, then the offense got off to such a wonderful start and kept it going the whole game. Unfortunately, it has not been the case. In past games, it's been the offense has one mistake, one punt, whatever it is, and in a game that normally would be a very very good game for an offense, it's just one bit short because the defense literally had nothing.
Yeah, basically, not to cut you off, but the Lions have been the Chargers in many of the shootouts of years past. The Eagles game, Goff throws a pick six, they lose by a touchdown. Seahawks last year, Goff throws a pick six, they lose by a touchdown. Seahawks this year, Goff throws a pick six, they lose by a touchdown. So it's always been the Lions in these shootouts that were the team making the one mistake. So to your credit and to the Lions' credit, uh, being the team that won the shootout and forced, the other team to have that one mistake was a big step.
Yeah, I mean, definitely a flip of the script for sure, and something you're gonna have to have if you're gonna be competing for divisions and competing for greater aspirations of playoff football.
Bob, do you got a score prediction for the Lions Bears game this weekend?
Ooh, tough one. I'm going 27-24. Detroit.
Fair enough. I can't remember how our predictions for the Lions Raiders game turned out from a couple weeks ago. I felt like you thought it would be closer. I think I said like 31-10 or something. Uh, Bob, I think the Lions offense is going to have their way with the Bears defense for the most part. I think the Bears offense might score some garbage tuds late. Give me the Lions 34-20. I think they end up winning it by 2 scores. Hopefully, I'm right. I'd love to have a stress-free Sunday. I don't know about you, Bob, but would love to have a
Of
stress-free
course,
Sunday.
of course, of course, Derek.
Bob, another massive game that we'll talk about briefly, and then we can move on to something else. Uh, the Chiefs and Eagles, Bob, play this weekend, and this game actually has massive implications for the Lions because, Bob, the Lions and Eagles do not play too many common opponents. But one common opponent they do share is the Kansas City Chiefs. And the Lions, as you remember and I remember quite fondly, have already beaten the Kansas City Chiefs. And so, with the Lions win this weekend and an Eagles loss this weekend, your Detroit Lions would be in possession of the first overall seed and the bye in the NFC. Bob, can Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs get it done in the Taylor Swift Bowl?
Yes, they can, Derek, and I think that's the beautiful thing about playing for the Kansas City Chiefs is that you know the track record of success is there, and when you have a track record of success, until you're unsuccessful, there's no reason to doubt. And we haven't reached that point yet with the Chiefs, and it's time to throw our full support behind the Kansas City Chiefs in their time of need.
Bob, I know in our group chat I banned myself from making picks on principle as it came to our friend group pick'em. I'm breaking that rule for the Kansas City Chiefs because there would be nothing I'd love more than to see the Detroit Lions sitting at 8-2. They're already Bob, they're already 7-2 for the first time in our lifetime. First time since 1993, Bob, that the Lions are 7-2 to start a season. And to see them at 8-2 with first place in the NFC, it doesn't get much better than that, Bob. So I'm with you, throwing our full support behind Taylor Swift and the Kansas City Chiefs.
I mean, come on, why not? You
Why
got to be
not?
done. Why not us?
Why not us, Bob? Why not us? Bob, college basketball is underway. College basketball is underway, and there has been quite the shakeup at the top of the rankings. Um, and not to pour salt in the wound, but Michigan State fans throughout this terrible football season that did not get any better with the unfortunate beatdown at the hands of the Buckeyes this past weekend have long said this fall, just wait till basketball season. And Bob, Tom Izzo let you down. Tom Izzo let you down, lost to James Madison at home to open the season, lost to Duke in the Champions Classic, and now they're about to face an Arizona Wildcats team that went to Cameron Indoor and beat that same Duke team and is ranked third in the country at the moment. Bob, what happened?
Derek. Fortunately, you can call me Notre Dame because I was all over this again. I don't really know what more I need to say besides this is just par for the course. This is no need to panic. This is patented material for Michigan State basketball, especially in the era of highly ranked time Izzo teams. It's one of these classic things. It starts out with step one, blowing it to a team that we have no business losing to. You can check that off. Number two, you can check off playing a highly ranked blue blood team and losing. Check that off. Um, you could also check off a tale as old as time with Tom Izzo. Uh, Bench players for other teams rising up and performing way better than expected and toasting you for 20 points. You can check that off as well. Thank you, Duke. Um, I'm not one to make, you know, any excuses. I mean, you got to do better than that. You got to beat James Madison. You got to at least take care of business there. Um, but this ish happens every year, should I say? And it'll just take some time. I mean, we'll probably, I've already told Dennis this, in a separate call. It'll be nice to discuss it with him live on the pod, but I already said that the third step is going to be a blowing to like an Oakland or a close game. It's going to be like a not necessarily a blowing, but a scare. It's going to be a scare against the likes of Indiana State or Oakland. So keep your eyes on that. It's going to be like a down to the wire nip tuck game with one of those teams, and then but Big Ten play will come around and we'll level off and start being like actually like somewhat decent again. Um, it's just the routine pattern. We've got to get to be underdogs before we can be overachievers, as I like to say, and that's just how it works. It irritates me because we're better than that, but for whatever reason, just be it, you know, Tom not being on his best game or AJ Hogard going 1 for 8 and not doing diddly squat against Duke when you can't have that, or Matty Sissoko being a fifth-year senior and looking like arse. Um, it's a number of reasons, but not time to press the panic button. Not not in my scenario. Completely expected and par for the course for me.
Yeah, Bob, I sent it in the group chat when MSU did lose to James Madison to open the season that it was a tactical loss. It was a tactical loss by Tom Izzo because, Bob, we've discussed it numerous times in the past. Basically, every single Michigan State basketball fan knows Tom Izzo hates being ranked to start a season, and he especially hates being ranked in the top 10, top 5 to start a season. So, what better way to tell your team you suck than by taking a tactical loss to James Madison and then taking another loss at the hands of a highly ranked opponent? Bob, you put it perfectly. The Michigan State Spartans are better with a chip on their shoulder. And so, what better way to get a chip on your shoulder than to have a bunch of people start calling you overrated, telling you you're trash, and then come into Big Ten play, round into form, and make a run in the tournament. So yeah, could everything sounds fine and dandy about what you said, but Bob, you brought up one point that I think is going to be problematic for Michigan State all year, and that's that Madi Sissoko is trash. Uh, I am a huge Madi Sissoko fan because I love the way he plays, because I think he's goofy. But the fact of the matter is, Bob, the 5 spot is in a very perilous situation. Madi Sissoko, like you said, fifth-year senior, you would have expected him to develop any sort of offensive game up to this point, and he hasn't. Carson Cooper, he's just not ready. He's just not ready. Jackson Kohler, just not ready, Bob. Um, and so I think that's going to be a problem. Fortunately for Michigan State, the era of the tower at the 5 spot is basically over. Pretty much the only, you know, ginormous big man that is left in the Big Ten is Zach Edey because he's not good enough to go to the NBA, so he's just going to keep picking on college kids. Uh, but Michigan, Hunter Dickinson is gone. Indiana, Trace Jackson Davis is gone. Northwestern, Penn State never really had massive guys at the 5. Maryland, from what I remember, does not have a massive guy at the 5 any longer that it used to. Illinois, Kofi Coburn, finally gone. And so you look across the Big Ten, and the days of enormous 5 men are pretty much gone. But the fact of the matter still remains that you'd like your 5 man to have some sort of, offensive skill set. and Madi Sissoko does not. So, Bob, uh, you're going to need better play from the five man, and AJ Hogarth's going to have to be, a leader and finally step up because his performance thus far has been rather lackluster. Any additional thoughts, Bob?
Derek, here's the thing. Manny Sissoko, Budden City. Um, I'm just irritated about the fact that we recruit we land in big recruits and they're always projects. How come every time we land a big recruit, it always ends up being a project? Like, give me a break. Like, I can't even like blame Thomas unnecessarily because like when you recruit, like this guy was like the number three recruit of like the country. Like else are you supposed to go after? Like, you're supposed to target the highly touted guys, right? And
Correct.
where are those guys dropping 20 and 10 for us? Right out of the box. Never happens. Give me a break. Oh, and also, I would be remiss if I didn't say last 10 meetings against Duke, Duke has had a plus uh 10 free throw, 10 or 15, I think I saw free throw advantage on average per game. Disgusting, no surprise, disrespect, national disrespect. Not making any excuses because it was not the reason that we lost. However, gross.
Yeah, getting outshot in free throws 30-12 is gonna cause some problems, unfortunately. Uh, you did have 14 more field goal attempts than Duke. Obviously, some of them get shortchanged a little bit from the free throw attempts. But Bob, there's one other, indisputable fact, and that's that the Michigan State Spartans desperately miss Joey Hauser. I for one cannot believe I'm saying this, Bob, but the Michigan State Spartans really miss Joey Hauser. I mean, the 3-point shooting thus far this year has been
Oh my
horrendous.
gosh.
Absolutely horrendous. There are multiple players on the University of Michigan men's basketball team that have more made free throws than the entirety of the Michigan State Spartans lineup combined. It's just not going to cut it, Bob. Not going to cut it. And I can't believe I'm saying it, but Michigan State really needed Joey Hauser to come back.
Derek, why are we the team of the 2 point J? We Michigan State Spartans are the team of the 2 point jump shot. I have no idea what has gotten into us. We've never been a particularly like 3 point oriented team ever in our history.
Not
However,
since the days of Bryn Forbes, Denzel
however,
Valentine.
what are we doing? I mean, we gotta do better than that. I mean, people gotta develop a jumper. I mean, what are we doing?
Bob, does Tom Izzo have shooting practices?
I was hearing leaks out of practices this week that apparently following the loss to Duke, they were shooting the lights out. Shocker to nobody. Probably shooting 90% in practice due to the game and shooting 10 garbage.
Bob, to start the year, the Michigan State Spartans are currently 9 for 61 from 3-point range to start the season. 9 for 61, Bob. Your thoughts?
Pathetic. Pathetic in a nightmare. A horror dream, Derek.
Bob, can I get an estimation on to what 9 for 61 is as a percentage?
Derek, that'd be 16%.
Very, very close. 14.75, Bob. 14.75%. Just disastrous. Disastrous.
Gosh,
Bob, I told you in the
horrendous.
I told you in the preseason Arizona was gonna, go into Cameron Indoor and beat Duke, and they did. I really tried for the Wildcats to do you a favor and beat Duke down and wear him down a little bit. Do you have any thoughts for our matchup next Monday, Bob? A big matchup. University of Arizona Michigan State Spartans next week.
Another 5 point MSU loss incoming.
What day is that?
Another
Next
5 point MSU loss.
That's a Thanksgiving Day game, Bob. Thanksgiving,
Oh
we're
my
gonna we're
gosh.
gonna be celebrating college basketball. It's at the perfect time too, the 2 p.m. window my time, 4 p.m. your time. I mean, that'll be right between the Lions game, uh, and the sort of downtime before the rest of the Thanksgiving game. Bob, will you be watching?
I mean, I'm sure I will. I mean, always a TV on Thanksgiving.
Bob, do we need to have a friendly wager of some sort?
Not that's not wise for me to do, Derek. That's that's not wise.
Fair enough, Bob. Fair enough.
Well, I mean, I wish I could wager like I could get Dennis on the pod, but I
I
couldn't
mean,
do I
not
can't do it. Like force like if I lost, I forced Dennis to take my spot in the pod for a week. But I
there's no
can't get him
guarantee.
here, Derek.
There's no
I
guarantee he'd
can't
even
get him
show up,
here.
Bob. There's no guarantee he'd
you
even
just
show up.
you just miss. You
Just,
just bail out.
just a flagrant Baylor, Bob. Flagrant Baylor, Dennis Weaver. Uh, what more can we do to get him on the pod, Bob? Multiple suggestions for changing days, Bob. I think the viewers deserve to know. I'm gonna read a message from our good friend Dennis Weaver regarding uh, potential changes to the days we record.
Love it. I
Uh,
think you should.
I think I should. So I sent a message in our group chat that said, "Are Thursdays in general a bad night for you, Dennis? Like I've said before, we can very well switch the days depending on how it works for everyone." Dennis Weaver replied, and I quote, "No, in general they are fine with me. There have just been a lot of one-offs that happen to be on Thursdays." Dennis, your thoughts? Not here. Bob? Bob, for a man who says
One
Thursdays are a good day for him, he sure seems to miss a lot of Thursdays.
I think I don't think we'll let the audience be the judge, jury, and executioner on whether Thursdays are a good day for Dennis Weaver to be on the podcast. Um, you know, just 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 an embarrassment. Just an embarrassment of every proportion, Dennis. I mean, how we talk about this every week. This is becoming a constant topic on our show. I'm sure the viewers are probably tuning in as much for our trashing of you, Dennis, as they're tuning in for the sports talk every week. I mean, what in the world are we doing?
I mean, just flagrant, Bob. Flagrant flaking. Bailage.
Thank God. You know what? Maybe this will get him beyond that, Derek, because I'm about to say it.
Okay.
Thank God golf is a boring game, or else we'd really be feeling your absence, Dennis. I mean, imagine if there was something interesting actually going on in the world of golf and we needed coverage.
Correct.
Because God forbid you'd be here to cover it.
I mean,
But
if only
thank goodness.
if only Dennis was here to talk about how John Rahm, there are rumors that he may be leaving the PGA Tour because he backed out of the golf league, Bob. But we can't. We have no input.
I mean, once you know what, I think I figured out what it was, Derek.
Okay, hit me with it.
Once I declared victory over Dennis because the Saudis took over the PGA. Dennis was never the same.
Mhm. Mhm.
He never recovered from that.
I Bob, I think you're right. I think you might be onto something. Last couple things. Just want to give a shout out to Michigan basketball. Picked 11th preseason to finish in the Big Ten. Finish 11th. 3-0 start. Went down to New York. Took on the Johnnies. And took out Rick Pitino. Screw you, Rick Pitino. You're a scumbag. That's all I really got to say about that. U of A rolling early should be an awesome Thanksgiving Day matchup with MSU. Bob, should we check in on the UFC football program?
The what the UC football program
The UC football program.
in the basement barrel dumpster.
Bob, you know it'd be really fun to talk about UC getting their first ever Big 12 win over former American Conference opponent Houston. But because Dennis is here, we're not going to do that, I don't think. Is that okay with you?
That's okay with me. Screw you, Houston.
And unfortunately, UC basketball has not yet lost either, so we'll leave that for a separate time, Bob, a separate time. Bob, a couple other things. Is Jim McElwain on the hot seat after bungling the end of the year
Yes,
road to bowl eligibility?
yes, Derek, he is because this is a couple of years now of underperformance from Jim, and if we're losing to really good teams, I can understand that. But when we lose to like some
Can't have it.
Ball State, I mean that's literally what we're talking here. Hadn't even beat an FBS, I think, opponent when they played us. Had like one win on the year, and we lost by like significant a significant amount. Then we play Western, we lose that. I mean, what are we
Choke.
doing?
We choked against Western, Bob.
Yes, that's what I believe he does. Or Derek, a choke job of epic proportions, and then to top it all off, we've got to play freaking Toledo,
Who very
who are
may.
looking world beaters.
I mean, they could end up in a New Year's Six bowl, Bob. The Toledo Rockets. And that's who Central Michigan is going to have to take down to get bowl eligible after fumbling the bag against Western and Ball Freaking State, who you are correct did not have a single Division 1 football win up to that point.
But don't fret, Derek. They beat Rocky Lombardi.
They they did beat Rocky Lombardi, and for that we are eternally thankful. Eternally thankful. Bob, the Detroit Pistons are a disaster. They're a disaster. Uh, 2 wins to start the season. I believe they're 2-8. Correct me if I'm wrong. 2-8.
Yeah,
Uh, Granted, they have been bit very hard by the injury bug. Very hard. But the fact of the matter is, Monty Williams was brought in to bring this team out of the depths of mediocrity. And so it begs the question, Bob, is Troy Weaver a fraud?
Derek, I want to say that I do, but I feel like a lot of the players that he has brought in are very talented. In It just seems to be a classic case of Derek, and I think this is really, I'm not sure if this is on Troy Weaver. I think partially it is, or it's on coaching, or what the deal is. Nobody can seem to put it get together at the same time. That's what it truly comes down to. I mean, we could have Cade Cunningham going off, but we're absent, and Killian Hayes doesn't show up, and then Cade doesn't show up, and then Killian Hayes decides he wants to have his one good game a week, and you know, it's just demoralizing. Like our first round pick this past year has looked, had some very bright moments so far, especially on the defensive end.
Correct. I mean, All-Star
And
Thompson dropped a 20 bomb, Bob. 21 points, 8 boards, 5 assists.
I mean, I'm not mad
2
about it.
blocks, 3 steals.
He's been very good defensively, but it's just part of me hopes that we didn't give Monty Williams the bag just for him to check out there.
I was wrong,
That's my
Bob.
biggest concern to this point.
And Bob, I was wrong. The Pistons are 2-10.
Oh my gosh.
They are 2-10. Wasted a 20-point double double from Marvin Bagley. Uh, You can't be wasting those types of performances. Frankly speaking, Bob, the Pistons have not taken good enough care of the basketball. Straight up. Have not taken good enough care of the basketball. Another 17 turnovers and 20 fouls against the Hawks this past Tuesday. I'm going to try and do a brief search quick. NBA turnover leaders by team. And I have a feeling the Detroit Pistons are going to be very high.
I would agree with that, Derek. I mean, it seems like the numbers would support that.
The Pistons are currently ranked 22nd in the league in turnovers with 17 and a half per game, Bob. 17 and a half turnovers per game. And they've lost a lot of close ones. Lost a lot of close ones, had a lot of late collapses. Uh just going to go through it quickly. 6 points to the Hawks, 11 points to the Bulls, 8 points to the Sixers, 2 points to the Bucks, 11 to the Warriors, 14 to the Suns, 9 to the Pelicans, 9 to the Blazers, 12 to the Thunder. After they and 1 point loss to the Heat. And you know where those points come from, Bob? They come from turnovers. And not only is it the fact that the Pistons have turned the ball over so much, but they also turn the ball over, and those turnovers lead to almost immediate points in the fast break. And so I'm not sure exactly what Monty Williams is going to be able to do to right the ship. It may, in fact, already be too late. But I remember, Bob, at the beginning of the season saying that, the Pistons should not be under 500, if I remember us correctly saying that anything below a 500 record would be a failure. And unless something changes quick, Bob, the Pistons may be destined for the lottery.
Oh my gosh, Derek, I'm sick and ill, and I don't. The thing is I just don't have a good explanation and a good answer, Derek. It doesn't feel like anything's truly fully at fault.
Bob, are you sick of being sick and ill?
I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired, Derek.
Correct, correct. Bob, that we're at 45 minutes, Bob. This is probably about how long you were hoping to go tonight, so I think we'll begin to wrap it up here.
Sure, sure.
Did you have any winners, losers, or right bench ballers?
Well, Derek, I have one particular winner of the week,
Okay, shoot.
and that would be none other than Josh Dobbs, Derek. That would be none other than Josh Dobbs.
The Pastronaut, Bob.
The pastronaut. The man was told he was not going to be traded, Derek. Not going to be traded from the Arizona Cardinals one day, and the next he was shipped out to the Vikings for a bag of chips. And just when everything looked dead for the Vikings, suddenly there's life. You've got to be kidding me. And it pains me to say it, the winner of the week, Josh Dobbs, for reigniting his future.
My winner of the week, Bob, chokeholds. I'm sure you're very well aware of a certain prominent individual for the Golden State
Good
Warriors.
pick. Good pick.
Thank you, thank you. A certain prominent individual of the Golden State Warriors has received a 5 game suspension, Bob, for placing Rudy Gobert in a chokehold. Bob, how long do you think Draymond Green has dreamt about putting Rudy Gobert in a chokehold? Because those two have a very, toxic history.
I bet it was definitely thought of before. What should be paid more attention to is the lack of where were their teammates trying to do anything about that? I mean, where was the backup, Derek? Rudy Gobert just getting full on choke held, and I mean, where's the teammates throwing bones, Derek? Where's something? Nothing, nothing, Derek.
Bob,
No
does
respect for Rudy.
Bob is does that speak to Rudy's teammates? Lack of concern or care for Rudy Gobert.
Softer than continental tissue paper, Derek.
Hard to dispute, Bob. Hard to dispute. I mean, Draymond. I thought one of the best parts of the clip was I can't remember who came over to help Rudy Gobert. I think it was Karl Anthony Towns. But as Draymond has Rudy Gobert in the chokehold, Draymond Green demonstrating very excellent mixed martial arts awareness feels Karl Anthony Towns going for a chokehold on him, and so he intelligently brought the chin down to prevent a chokehold being placed on him too. So credit to Draymond Green for his mixed martial arts acumen and for, thwarting a takedown submission attempt by Karl Anthony Towns.
I mean, where is he from originally, Derek? The Gnaw.
The
The
Sag
Gnaw.
Nasty, baby. My hometown. My hometown, Bob. Went to Saginaw High. 15 minutes down the road. But yeah, my winner of the week, chokeholds. Thank you, Draymond Green, for bringing the entertainment to NBA basketball, as always. Bob, any losers?
Well, we could go with a few classics. I mean, you could always resort to the classic Dennis. You could always resort to the Cincinnati Bengals, as I have been known to do. However, Derek, I think I would like to resort to the LA Chargers. Excuse me, because they're just quite simply, Derek. I think you're quite simply just gonna have to abandon hope who enter here for the LA Chargers. They're never going to be anything. They never were, and they never will be. In all hope of that was buried by the Detroit Lions. The Chargers are not doing anything this year, and Brandon Staley, I don't know why he's still employed. A lame duck, if I've ever seen one. Fire him immediately.
Bob, can you guess what Brandon Staley was brought over as the head coach to sort of, be a guru of?
The offense.
No, it was actually the defense. Brandon Staley was actually the
Oh no.
Rams defensive coordinator during their,
Oh no.
title run years. And in the same way that Kenneth Walker may have been responsible for Mel Tucker getting paid, Aaron Donald may have been responsible for Brandon Staley getting a head coaching job because believe it or not, he was supposed to be a defensive guru that would fix the Chargers defense to allow them to reach the points where the Justin Herbert led offense could take them. And Bob, I've come to a realization, light bulb moment, eureka moment, whatever you want to call it. You want to know, or can you guess why I have such an affinity for the Chargers?
You love teams that have never had a success.
No, but close. That felt like an unfortunate, unnecessary shot fired. It's because they remind me so much of the Matthew Stafford Detroit Lions. I think that's what it is. There was a stat that came out that in Justin Herbert's career with the Chargers, the offense has scored the exact same amount of points that the defense has given up. I believe they're averaging like 29.2 a game, scoring and giving up. And that very much reminds me of the Matthew Stafford Detroit Lions, where for whatever reason, it was either Matthew Stafford heroics on a fourth quarter drive or the defense letting him down. And there was really no in between. So I think that's ultimately where my appreciation for the LA Chargers comes from, is that I see so much of Matthew Stafford and Justin Herbert, and ultimately, I just want the man to be successful because I think he's a good quarterback. Um, I'd like him on my team.
Understandable. Understandable.
So I think ultimately after this weekend it all sort of, came to me where I was like, man, this team reminds me so much of the Matthew Stafford Lions teams that I watched growing up. Bob, my loser of the week is Ryan Day. Is Ryan Day, Bob, and here's why. U of M and Jim Harbaugh today decided to settle with the Big Ten, and in exchange for the Big Ten closing their investigation and committing to not levying any further penalties against the university, regardless of what the NCAA investigation uncovers. Jim Harbaugh accepted his 3 game suspension. with last week's game already counting. And so what that means for Ryan, third base day, Bob, is that he is in a lose-lose situation. Granted, he'll get some credit for beating a Michigan team, even though it doesn't have Jim Harbaugh. But the fact remains that beating a Jim Harbaugh-less Michigan team will not be much of an accomplishment, to be quite honest. And even worse, losing to a Jim Harbaugh-less Michigan team would be probably the nail in Ryan Day's coaching coffin at Ohio State. And so really, this is just it's a bad day to be a Buckeye. Maybe they feel more hope in a victory against us in 8 days, 9 days from now. But the fact of the matter remains that if Ryan Day loses to a team that does not have Jim Harbaugh on the sidelines, he is never going to recover, and Michigan fans will forever be able to hold that over Ohio State fans' heads. So, my loser of the week is Ryan Day. Any thoughts there, Bob?
I think that's a fair assessment. Kind of a rock on a hard place spot because you need the game very badly. I mean, it's a huge game. But at the same time, people are still going to call you frauds no matter what. So hopefully that doesn't weigh on the game too much mentally or physically because I hope for some good football.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Bob, one of these weeks we'll have a Garbage Time Takes Your Money segment when the three of us are
Right,
here.
right,
Uh,
right.
one week, but today is not that day because
It
Dennis
is not.
continually refuses to show up. So, Bob, no right bench baller from me this week that I can think of just off the top of my head. I'm sure you don't have one either. So, by all means, go ahead and plug the socials.
At Garbage Time Take on X, at or at Garbage Time Takes on X, at Garbage Time Takes on Instagram. And of course, you can find the link to our website in the description of this video below. Please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. And of course, ream Dennis in the comments for not showing up. Derek, always a wonderful host as always. And of course, I try to do my best to provide what insight that I can and get quite lively and emotional over things that maybe don't deserve such emotion. But you know what? That's my job. Thank you for tuning in as always.
You know, Bob, it's your job, and you show up on a week to week basis as long as you don't get last minute concert tickets to sit in a suite for Morgan Wallen. And for
That's
that,
right.
we're very appreciative. You put on the blue collared shirt, you get your hands dirty, and you
And you
come
go
to
to
work.
work.
You come to work. You bring your lunch pail, Bob, and you come to work every week, and you get the job done. Uh, on the whether you're full of energy or on the verge of comatose.
That's right, baby. Yeah, you know, as the great, here's a reference for you, Derek. As the great WWE superstar Heath Slater said, when you got a double wide to pay for, Derek, you kick out. And that's what we do here on Garbage Time Takes. When we got to show up, we got to keep the lights on. We show up and get the work done.
That we do. That we do, Bob. Love to hear it. Last thing, very quickly, because I almost forgot. Because the MLB does a weird thing where they don't announce all of the, awards in one day. Shout out Shohei Otani, AL
Right,
MVP, Ronald Acuna,
right,
NL MVP,
right.
and none other than Corbin Carroll of Bobby Epler's fantasy team for
Woo!
NL Rookie of the Year, Bob. Corbin Carroll and Gunnar Henderson of the AL unanimous, Bob. Unanimous Rookie of the Year. How about it?
A lot of unanimous this year. A lot of unanimous.
Agreed. NL Cy Young, Blake Snell, not to, much of a surprise to anyone. AL Cy Young, also not much of a surprise, Garrett Cole. I don't remember the managers of. Actually, I do. Brandon Hyde of the Baltimore Orioles, manager of the year for the AL. And Skip Schumacher, NL manager for the Miami Marlins, is your manager of the
Skip.
year for the NL.
Good picks. Good picks all around.
There's one more last thing, because I can't believe I almost forgot this. And that's that the Chicago Cubs are going to be ruling the NL Central for years to come. Screw you, Dennis. Screw the Cincinnati Reds. You're stuck with David Bell. And what did the Chicago Cubs do, Bob? They went out and got the best manager in baseball, top three manager in baseball, Craig Counsell from their division rivals, the Milwaukee Brewers, the Subway Sandwich team, a organization with no history, no legacy, no class, no championships, and Craig Counsell relieves me of the David Ross nightmare. And it's too bad Dennis isn't here so I could get his live reaction to me absolutely shoving it down his throat that the Chicago Cubs are going to dominate the NL Central for years to come. Bob, how about it? How about it, Bob?
I did have a discussion on this topic with Dennis, and I will say I'll try to provide some insight of his perspective for you, Derek, because I'm sure you're interested. His thoughts were number one, we're stuck with David Bell. Are you kidding me? Number two, Craig Counsell overrated. Number three, and I
That's
kind of agree with
cope.
this point.
That's cope. Point number two is cope. Uh, Dennis, give me some of that copium, Dennis, because I could get a nice little high off of that.
I mean, there was a little bit of what has Craig Counsell ever done from Dennis Weaver,
Oh,
and and
only won the NL Central numerous times with an owner that doesn't care about baseball and cares about making money.
he also and the point number three that I kind of agree with. David Ross should be outraged and
That's fair.
should be cursing the day he was ever associated with the Chicago Cubs. This man got up. This man didn't even get. I mean, this man got up and extended by the Chicago Cubs, and then they held the interview right underneath his back and replaced his R's. Not even firing him, not even letting him know, just out of the willy nilly, out of the blue, announced new manager of the Chicago Cubs. I mean, for a man that's got a history with the organization like that, to just up and toss him out, I mean, a little bit disheartening.
I mean, here's the thing. David, listen, I have nothing against David Ross the person, David Ross the World Series catcher, David Ross
Right,
the clutch, and his last at bat of his career, Bob, hits a home run in
right.
Game 7 of the World Series.
I mean, Derek,
Absolutely,
you got to respect that.
absolutely nothing against David Ross. Very appreciative as for what he did with the Chicago Cubs, both as a player and a manager. But the fact of the matter is, Bob, he was a first-time manager.
Uh oh.
Each and with each coming year, he was still learning on the job, and there just wasn't much improvement in sight. And he refused to, play young guys when they were brought up. There has never been any confirmed reports of this, but it felt like there was a bit of a disconnect between the front office and David Ross in terms of, playing time for certain players. And now you're going to get a guy who's been in the game for a long time, has won a division numerous times, and was a dropped fly ball in right field from possibly going to the World Series against the LA Dodgers. So Dennis can shout overrated all he wants. That is cope. That is hardcore cope. Cope, seethe, and mauled, Dennis. Uh, because the Chicago Cubs, led by Craig Counsell, are going to be dominating the division, and I very much look forward to it. Bob, last thing, because I it's been so long. Any thoughts on Eduardo Rodriguez opting out of his deal after utilizing his no trade clause that would have got the Tigers some picks for him last year?
Um, just here's what I want you to do when for that topic, Derek. I want you to envision me curled up over a trash can, yakking.
Mm-hmm.
That
Mm-hmm.
is my total emotion when it comes to the Eduardo Rodriguez situation
Bob, that was
and
sick.
his uh his and the team's actions in regards to trading him, then the contract coming due, and then him saying, "I don't want to go to out west, but now I'm going to go, and I don't mind going out west all but 2 months later." So, you know, at first I was willing to give him a little bit of the benefit of the doubt because it wasn't his contract, so like you can't expect him to just go back on that if he doesn't. He doesn't have to, even though I thought it was a little weak sauce that he didn't. Uh, but now to just say like what changed in like a month,
Correct.
this is like a month or two. So like clearly it wasn't whatever it wasn't that big of an issue, and he just really wanted to be a free agent, and that just hurts. There, it hurts.
Yeah, absolutely sick. Disgusting move by Eduardo Rodriguez, and I hope he gets paid significantly less than what his opt in would have been. I believe it was somewhere around $17 million a year that he opted
Right,
out of. So I hope he gets paid significantly less than that because, one, he hasn't been proved to have been reliable or healthy over his couple seasons in Detroit. So screw you, Eduardo. And Scott Harris, that's a blunder. That's a general manager blunder to have not been able to get a deal done last year, and it's going to come back to bite him. So we'll see how the Tigers rebound. But yeah, Bob, thanks again for plugging the socials about 10 minutes ago before I got to go on my gloat parade on Craig
no problem.
Counsell. Screw you, Dennis. You're going to. That one hurt. I know that hurt, Dennis. To watch Craig Counsell go to the Cubs and still be stuck with David Bell. I know that hurt. I know that hurt. To see the Cubs have the gall to do what the Reds wouldn't, which is upright, kick your current manager to the curb, and simultaneously hire a top three manager in baseball. That hurt. And I have no and I'd just like to take a second to apologize to absolutely nobody. Conor McGregor, thank you. Everyone, thank you for watching. We will see you.
Right.
Uh, Not sure what we'll do about Thanksgiving coming up. We'll have to decide separately. So you may see an episode next week. You may not. But in any case, that means you should subscribe, hit the notification bell so you know when the next pod does go live. Thanks so much for all of us here at Garbage Time Takes, me and Bobby specifically, since Dennis can't be bothered to join us. Perhaps he'll join us next time as a guest appearance. And with that, we will see you on the next episode in 3.
One, peace.
Peace.